What's going on YouTube? My name is Mr. Crippled, and today I want to go ahead and bring you the OB10 patch notes review. Now before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you want to keep up with any future content, I will be leaving a link to my Twitch and my Discord in the description below. Now, I'm only going to be going over the major changes that this patch is going to be bringing, especially with a couple future patches, because there's kind of a lot going on, not too much, but the biggest changes with this patch are the god balancing and the new items that we're going to be getting here soon, both of which I'm extremely excited for. But let's go ahead and get to the start of the video, and obviously we're going to be talking about Apollo. He's the newest god in the game, just released today on May 19th. God, I can't remember what day it is. And he's pretty interesting. He's a pure physical scaling god. He's our next hunter in the game. Probably one of the only attack speed hunters that can actually get away with building Transcendence because of how mana hungry he can be. He does seem to have better scaling now than he did in Smite 1. His autos do hit a little bit harder. At the sacrifice of, it does feel like his attack speed is a little bit lower based outside of his passive. But this is just an initial review. I will be making a full-on Apollo guide here in the future once I get my hands on him enough times to kind of make a more in-depth view. But the two biggest changes that he is going to be coming into the game, he's going to be getting coming into the game, is basically just his ultimate and his 3. Let's go ahead and get the minor thing out the way. The 3 will now give him a stack of audacity for any enemy hit. So for whenever you hit an enemy with this, it actually does go directly to his passive, making it to where you don't have to completely rely on your autos. Speaking of which, his Apollo now, his passive now gives him 1 stack towards his passive on basic attack and for each successful damaging ability. So now you don't need to only rely on your auto attacks to build this passive. Now you can get it by hitting abilities as well, besides his 2. So this does help him get his max attack speed a lot quicker, and will probably help him a lot better in the boxing scenario, as with him back in Smite 1, you only could get the max stacks of audacity with basic attacks, so this is a nice little welcome change. The other thing that is kind of changed is how his 3 works. Now enemies are slowed, you gain a speed buff, and it still knocks back and does damage to enemies. So this move got a slight buff. It doesn't hit incredibly hard, but the buffs you do get from this is pretty nice. And again, you do get a stack of audacity. And the final change that he's getting is to his ultimate, to where now 2 allies can join in the chariot ride when he takes off from his current location. So whenever you're trying to engage on an enemy team, if you're split pushing or you're trying to get to a certain objective quickly, now you can take your team with you. Can take at least 2 teammates with you rather than having to wait, rather than having to get there late or having to show up. It helps with the rotation with this whole team and does give his team a little bit of extra safety if he can get into the sky before he initially dies. But this does have still has a very long casting time. So this isn't an amazing get out of jail free tool, but it is an amazing get in tool, especially when you can pair this with 2 other people. The trade-off is that the more people who join, the more mana it's going to take, which is why I think building Transcendence on him is actually going to be really strong, but we're just going to have to see. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about is his aspect that will be coming out on the 23rd, aspect of Harmony. There's a lot going on with this. So I'll do a more in-depth guide to this as well once it comes out. However, just know that it's basically the Cupid treatment. His aspect will make him a full-on support, and he'll deal more damage based off of how much health you have on your 1. And plus his passive will no longer give him attack speed, rather it just makes his 1 a free cast. So it's nice. It's interesting, and I want to see where it goes and see if this could actually be a viable pick. We'll just have to see, because the 1 does get reduced scaling. He no longer will get protections on his 2, but he does give health shields now. So it's strange, but I can't wait to see what they do with this. The rest of this is fluff. You know, one of Sobek's old Smite 1 skins is coming back, and it's getting a chromatic or prism adjustment, so you'll get extra colors on this. So this is kind of just for cosmetic purposes. The big thing with the general that everybody's been waiting for, now we have boosters back: account EXP, worshiper gain, market wandering market XP gain, you know. And then whenever you pop up a booster, your team gets small benefits, but the benefits go up depending on if everybody pops these boosters. So boosters are back, everybody. This is the most important part. Now, to the best part of the patch, the balancing. Couple nerfs, couple buffs, some that people think are necessary, some others that I don't think are personally necessary, but we'll just go ahead and go over them all. Baron is getting a buff. Wrap it up. His 3 is now getting reduced cooldowns as you level it up, so now there's a point to level it. It's getting a whole 2 seconds shaved off at max rank, so this could be really nice. And then his 4, his ultimate, now gets increased scaling, which means this hits harder. So his ultimate now does more damage. I don't know if this is going to be a huge change, but having any kind of cooldown reduction and a damage increase is nice. It's just that the damage increase on the ultimate is nice. However, it's still a fairly easy ultimate to dodge if you have beads or a run move. So if they have these up, you don't... I wouldn't say this is negligible because it does help, but there is still ways to deal with this. So I don't know if this is going to make him... it definitely makes him better, but I don't think it's going to shift his position on a tier list too much. Cernanos getting a buff on his aspect of Strife, so his 3 now gains the bonus cooldown reduction when hitting jungle monsters. And instead of 4 seconds per hit, it's down to 2 seconds per hit. So whenever you hit an enemy god or an enemy in general, you get less cooldown shaved off the 3. However, you can use it on minion waves, so it's actually a pretty decent clear move, and you can abuse it on laning phase if you try to use it in solo. This is pretty interesting. And then also, the Horn Charge does more damage early, but does the same amount of damage at max rank. So, minor buffs. I don't think it's, again, same thing. I don't think it's going to be a game changer per se, but this is a nice change. Twin Bots. Aspect of this Disruption, which is his stun. The 2 now has increased damage. I'm pretty sure this is only for the aspect, so now your 2 will hit harder base, but it will still not do as much damage as, let's say, the non-aspect version. So you just get a little bit more damage off of this, which is kind of nice, but eh. On few strikes, though, the passive gains an increased strength stack from 2 to 5. This is a pretty big buff, so Home Boss is definitely going to be seeing a lot more play. He's going to be hitting a lot harder. As Weekend said in his recent tier list video, his early game is okay, his mid game is pretty decent, but that late game is crazy. So having this increase in damage now is going to make him, I'm pretty sure it's going to make him a more meta late game jungler. So we'll see this more. I'm a big stickler when it comes to late game gods. So if this is as good as I think it's going to be, I'm pretty sure this is going to be probably one of my few exceptions. And then the Somersault, this just has increased damage, so it's going to be hitting harder. Loki, getting a buff to his 1, his Invis. The damage over time, the dot damage is going to get an extra 5% damage scaling, so this is going to make him hit harder. He's not the best right now, but any kind of damage increase for anybody is going to be nice. He's probably going to shoot up in the tier list just a little bit. Nuwa, buff, Clay Soldiers. The 2, when they dash onto you, that has more damage scaling, double the damage, so that's nice. The 3, the explosion damage, now has an extra 10% intelligence scaling. So Nuwa is hitting way harder now. I think she needed a buff to the ult. The ult does hit hard, but it only does like 500, so it's not even that scary late game unless you're like literally 1 HP. So I think this is nice, but the buff that she did need, she didn't get, so we'll see. Yamoja, getting a buff. Yamoja's one of those characters that's like, only a handful of people are nasty with her, and if you're nasty with her, she's one of the best supports, but if you're not and you're just an average player, she's dog water. She's not that viable. So, the 2 getting increased health shield and increased scaling, so the health shield is bigger, and the 4 having just her ultimate just having a flat 120-second cooldown, so it's on a lower cooldown the entire game, rather than having to level it to be able to get the cooldowns off of it. Both of these buffs are extremely nice. So the people who are average are going to see have a lot better performances with Yamoja, as she's going to be, I want to say necessarily easier to play, but a lot easier to manage. So this is nice, and the people who are nasty with Yamoja are just going to keep getting nastier. So this is going to be amazing. Now, this is something that was interesting to me. if you watched any of my previous videos or if you've seen any of my posts, you know that I wasn't a big believer in Merlin when he first came out. I'm a bit more of a believer in him now. And this change is interesting because it's a nerf, but a buff at the same time. So, ignoring the nerf, right? The Eclipse one, which is the Void one, has 2 seconds shaved off his cooldowns, which is amazing. Irradiate, which is his 2A, Radiate, I think this is the 2A, I think this is the 2, the little pole. Let me see. Actually, no, this is the 2A. Radiate. I think this is the Dragon 2. I had to double check on this one. No, this is the Dragon 2. The Dragon 2 has a decreased cooldowns by 3 seconds and a base 3 seconds, so that's nice. Radiate, increased. So basically, his abilities are getting increased scaling, but then the aspect, the thing that I like the most, to switch stances has been increased by 5 seconds, and the intelligence buff that you get from it is reduced by half. So changing stances does less damage and you can do it less often, but when you do change stances, you get a bigger damage, you get way bigger base damage. I don't know how to feel about this. I think Merlin is pretty up there. I think he's A. I thought he was A before this patch. He could still be there. This could also bump him up to S. I don't know yet. This definitely more testing needed, but he was already pretty consistent in OB9. So now with this buff, he's going to be way better. Cannot wait to see what they do with. Cannot wait to see the numbers with this. Aladdin, nerf his 1, increase cooldown, more mana cost, and then decrease damage on the return, on the genie return. This is good without completely destroying the character. I think that Aladdin is still going to be very strong because honestly, you weren't even supposed to be using the return on the 1 anyway. You were supposed to be using the charges on the leap and the 2 in the first place. So this is a good buff while also not being too relevant at the same time. Or nerf. This is a pretty decent nerf without being too much. I think this is a good direction for Aladdin because he's still strong. He's just not going to be nuking with every single ability now. A Willix, nerf, Feather Step, increase cooldowns by a second. Moonlight Charge, increase the cooldowns again, so it has more cooldowns at the beginning, but goes back down to 12 when you level it up. Gravity Surge, less damage, and less strength scaling. And then they hit her strength scaling by 10%, her base strength scaling by 10%. A Willix is dead. I don't think a Willix is going to be played anymore. She does significantly less damage. Her cooldowns are significantly longer, and they hit her ultimate as well. So I don't know if she's going to be viable anymore. I think she's done. I don't think we're going to be seeing a Willix at all anymore. This is something that I didn't expect to see. Kabrakan getting nerfed. The 2 does less damage now at level 1, but does the same damage at level 5. This is your primary leveling ability anyway. So again, it's a pretty decent nerf. And this affects both the regular and the enhanced version of this. So both versions of his 2 is going to be hitting significantly less. Is going to be hitting less hard now. And I think that Kabrakan getting touched this patch is a little weird. I haven't personally. This is just personal opinion. I have not seen a lot of Kabrakans. The Kabrakans that I have seen go off. They do. They go off. Because, honestly, he's like a B-A tier support. He's really strong. Or even a B-A tier solo laner. He's very strong. But the nerf doesn't really seem necessary. If anything needed to be nerfed about him, maybe it's taking away those extra damage mitigations he gets. The personal damage mitigations, because that is a little crazy. But even then, I don't think it warranted a nerf at all. So that's kind of strange. Hades nerf. I'm all for this. Fuck Hades. I hate Hades. I've always hated Hades. And people are saying now he's the best solo laner because Barrier and fucking Bloodbound Book. No, Hades has always been stupid. So any nerf to this character, I'm not even going to read it. It says nerf. I'm believing it's a nerf. And it looks like a decreased heal and less protections. That's all I care about. Sobek, nerf. Hate Sobek too. Sobek is hyper annoying. a lot of CC, super tanky. They didn't really hit his damage, but they increased his cooldowns by 1 second. Most people don't think a 1 second increase is that much. This is a kind of a big deal. It's a baby nerf while also not being one, because this means he can anti-heal you less, and then this means he can knock you into the air less times, less often. So this does hurt him quite a bit. And then Soul nerfed the mage version of her. The 3 does less damage. It shouldn't have been doing as much damage as it was in the first place, so this getting a damage nerf is kind of nice. So this is nice. And then finally, the item balance. This is where it gets a little crazy. Anti-heal items are getting huge buffs, right? So, anti-heal. Ruinous Ankh. Remember last patch how Void Shield and Mystic Mail, they did more damage the closer you are, but the farther you are, the less healing you have? Ankh got the same treatment, but instead, now it has increased anti-heal the closer you are to the enemy. Healing, I think, is done. Because now, Ruinous Ankh has bigger anti-heal when you're up close. Divine Ruin now has less damage, 20 less damage. It shouldn't have had 105 damage to begin with, but now it does its original Divine Ruin from Smite 1. Now it does triggers a lightning attack and damages up to 4 enemies, and it does more damage based off of your intelligence, and it occurs every 20 seconds. So this is now old Divine Ruin, while still packing a walloping 85 intelligence. I think this item actually hits harder. I think this item is way better now. So this is kind of crazy. Brawler's Ruin, same thing. 50% reduced healing. Getting a kill or enemy assist creates a field around you that lasts 6 seconds, providing allies with strength and intelligence. So if you kill somebody with Brawler's Ruin, you basically get an aura that gives your entire team strength. Basically a big damage buff. I don't think it's that great, honestly, comparatively to Divine Ruin, but this is still nice. This is still very nice. And the fact that it's not just a kill, you can get this passive on an assist as well. So if you're just standing next to somebody and they get a kill, they'll also get a strength and intelligence buff. So it's nice. I just don't think it's better than Divine Ruin. But either way, this is still really, really strong. And then Contagion is going to be released today. Costs 2150, 400 health, 6 regen. It's an active effect, so it's not pure anti-heal. It's like what's that card? The attack speed anti-heal card that the game has now, where you have to activate it to get anti-heal. Except this one, you don't have to directly hit anybody. This one just puts an area of effect on the ground, and anybody that is standing in it has 75% reduced healing. And then anybody who uses an ability while affected by this, your personal cooldowns are reduced by 1/4 of a second. So, kinda nice. Still, again, more testing really needed to see if this card is really all that. Watching people play in the PTS, I've maybe seen people build this maybe once or two times, and I don't personally see a point building this when Ruinous Ankh is right there. It gives protections, and it's a passive effect rather than an active effect, so you don't have to worry about activating it. So, cheap. It is cheap. I don't think it's worth it. The only thing that Contagion is really worth it for is this whopping 400 health and 6 health regen. That's kind of massive. That's nice. But I'm not a big believer in anti-heal that you need to activate for it to be useful. And again, it's not like you activate this, it's a damaging debuff. It's a minor debuff. It's just a AoE debuff that reduces your cooldowns. So I think this could be good on supports, honestly, and I think Ruinous Ankh will be better for solo laners. Since supports will more than likely be fighting multiple people, I think this is going to be better for them. Again, I don't think it's better than Ruinous Ankh. I think it's better for either the solo or the support to get this. If anything, these two are going to be interchangeable. If the support doesn't get Ruinous Ankh, then the solo is going to get it, and the support's going to get Contagion. I think these are interchangeable. Most of the time, though, you're going to get Ruinous Ankh over Contagion. That's just me. All right, and then finally, The first two new items that you're going to be getting, we're getting a fuck ton of new tank items. And all these tank items are so great. They're so great. But we're going to go ahead and talk about the two that we're going to be getting today, as of May 19th. So the first thing is Dwarven Plate. 2,800 gold, but 30 of each protections. This is a passive effect. You gain additional physical protection equal to 12.5% of your physical items, and you gain additional magical protection equal to 25% of your magical items. And then the active swaps the percent bonuses, and it has a 30-second cooldown. So if you need more physical... So essentially, this item will allow you to build more magical defense items, and then when you need to fight somebody physical, you just pop the active, and now instead of getting 12.5%, you get 25%. This item is cracked. This is cracked. This card is cracked. All right, you will gain so many this plus prophetic cloak, and then a Oni Hunter's garb. You're going to be so freaking tanky. It's not even funny. The only thing that's really going to shred through this is Executioner, and Executioner even saw a slight nerf a couple patches ago, like a shadow nerf, and this is crazy. I like this item. Tank meta and DPS meta in OB9 was already relatively close, but people still said tanks were better. Now tanks are getting this. I don't know. I think tanks are back on top again. And then Freya's Tears, again, releasing today. 20 physical protection, 25 magic protections, and a whopping 20 cooldown rate. And then each time you lose 25% health, you gain 15%. Not 15 flat, 15% protections. And it lasts for 5 seconds, and it stacks twice. So if you lose 50% health, you'll gain 30% protections. This is not good for obviously for squishies, but for tanks, dear God, this is crazy. And then 20 cooldown rate. Oh my God. Yeah, I think tanks are going to be back on top. Tanks are definitely going to be back on top. And then we have a couple releasing on the 26th, 2 new ones. Erosion gives 250 health, 25 physical protections, and 15 magical protections. Passive. I can't wait for this. Any shield applied on enemy gods within 11.2 meters will be reduced by 30%. And then whenever this occurs, you gain 10% of your protections. This not only counters the barrier meta, but this counters anybody who has a shield. So barriers are going to be done for. What's it called? Apathy, empathy. The support item that gives you a health shield whenever you're hit by a CC effect, it's going to counter that. And it's relatively cheap. It's only 2,400. So you can slap this on as a first, and it still gives 25 protection and 50 magical protection. So you still get protections, you gain health. This is everything a support needs at the very beginning to counterplay another support that's solely relying on shields. So this card is going to be very great. Unfortunately, that also does mean Odin, one of my favorite shadow top tiers from OB9, unfortunately is no longer going to be viable once this comes out, because Barrier is going to be there, and then he'll be able to counter Barrier with this, but then people will also be able to counter his shield. This is going to hurt him, so F Odin maids, I apologize, but this is a great change. Shields have been so annoying since the beginning, and with Bloodbound Book and Bloodforge being as strong as they are on junglers, hunters, mid laners, this is going to be a game changer for a lot of people. So I genuinely do think we're going to be right back into a tank meta with this, but at least this is going to head to the 26th, so people who like those items, get your fun in while you can. And then finally, Dragon Scale, 2,700 gold, 300 health, 20 of each protections. Passive. Each time you take damage, you gain 1 plus 2% bonus protections against that damage type. Stacks last for 1.5 seconds with a maximum of 10 stacks. Stacks decay by 1 rather than being fully removed. Draconic Scale. And freaking Freya's Tears. And Dwarven Plate. These items, all these, you could, I'm 100% sure that you could build all these new items and not be able to be killed. This is actually kind of crazy. And then slap on Gauntlet of Thieves. This is crazy. This is actually insane. So, this is nuts. Hold on. So, and then finally we're getting some general item balances. A few things getting changed. Amita Charm. Now the tick frequency is increased, so the healing, the amount of times you get healed is increased, but how much you get healed is decreased. So you'll heal quicker, but with less health. So not really a nerf, not really a buff. It's just a shift. Berserker Shield buff. Increased protection items from 50% to 65%. Auto attack soul laners are gonna have a field day with this one. I have Providence. I don't even know what this does, but 50 increased extra health. Hasten Fatalis, now increased cost, but more attack speed. Increased the max stacks from 3 to 4. And melee basic attacks provide 2 stacks, while range only provide 1 per hit. So, Sun just got home. Give me 1 second to go ahead and scroll all the way back down. So, back here, Hasten Fatalis is getting a buff. Again, this card is kind of useless, so I don't really believe in it, so Hussar's Wings, no one really builds this anymore, but it has 200 less gold and a 100 increase to health. So maybe this could be good again. Especially since the passive on this does make you completely immune to slows. So less gold, more health, still really expensive, but does give a lot of health and a lot of protections with a pretty amazing passive. I can see this being a pretty situational item, I'm not going to lie. And then Mystic Mail, a new passive effect has been added. Enemies are dealt magic damage per second, and then it's increased depending on how close you are. Enemies take the full amount of bonus damage as if they have a health shield. Dog keeps barking. Okay, hold on. Passive effect, enemies dealt. This was changed last time. Enemies take the full amount as bonus damage if they have a health shield. Okay. Further testing needed. If somebody in the comment section can tell me what this particularly means, because this was already there, right? This is different. This part is what's different. I'm not entirely sure what this means. So further testing needed, or somebody in the comment section can explain this part to me, that would be nice. Then Pharaoh's Curse. The attack speed slows increased by 20%. And then the slow debuff is still 20%, so you don't get a 40% slow, but you do get a 40% attack speed slow, which is nice. And you can use this more often, from 60 seconds to 45 seconds, but it doesn't last as long, since it only lasts, so they cut it by 2 seconds. So instead of being 6 seconds, it lasts for 4 seconds, but it's a 40% attack speed slow. This is kind of crazy. This is really good into auto attack team comps and for auto attack solo laners. So this is really nice. And then Spirit Robe increased to protections by 5 for each, and then a couple bug fixes. This patch is very interesting. Tanks are definitely way stronger now. There's no debate. We are right back into tank meta. As a solo lane main, I'm happy. I like being so tanky that you can't do nothing. I'll be 100% honest. I'm biased. I don't like DPSs. I think that people who main just DPS roles probably are zoners in fighting games. I don't know. But I know that the community does not like tanks for good reason. And tanks being able to kill you and still not be able to die is frustrating. Especially in my case, where sometimes I do like playing a DPS role every once in a while. So having to go into tanks that can do 1,000,000 damage but still can't die is very frustrating. This patch, a lot of people are not going to like, because of the amazing tank items that we are getting. So hopefully when Ganesha comes out, they'll release some new items that are good for DPSs to kind of put them back into equal playing fields like they kind of did with OB9. But OB10 is definitely for the tanks. Let me know what you guys think of this patch. I appreciate all y'all for watching, and y'all take care.